Okay, so we're now in the lab portion of tonight's session. As you can see from the screen there, we're in lab. And this is the second part of your introductory Excel tutorial. So last week, y'all were kind of given an overview of the various principles of spreadsheet operations, as well as some basic understanding of formulas. And so what I want to do in this tutorial is go through an exercise where we'll revisit where we will revisit tutorials, revisit formulas. Just to let you know, I've been working since 8:30 this morning. So where we will revisit formulas that you may have covered last time. I know y'all have been working all day too, so I understand that. We will also get into pivot tables, which is a great feature for dealing with data. And then I also want to spend some time with charts and graphs. The links that Dr. Bacot provided in the PowerPoint that he shared with y'all, y'all got copies of that PowerPoint, correct? No? Okay, I'll make sure to upload that first week PowerPoint that Dr. Bacot provided, because there's some good links in there that I think would be helpful for y'all as y'all move forward, some good tutorial information. But I want to kind of keep this simple for tonight. So what I have done is I have provided with you this file, which I'm going to use. If you want to try to carry along, you can, or you can just watch. I leave that up to you. So we're going to go to this file now, which is the data set for lab 31 January 22. I'm going to switch over screens. And y'all should see the spreadsheet now, correct? Okay, good. So what I have done here is I have provided you basically with a snapshot of some budget information from the city, from here in Rocky Mount from a couple of years ago. And what I want to do is use this data to run some formulas, also run a pivot table, and also show you some chart and graph. And what I also wanted to do is also use as an opportunity to welcome y'all to how jurisdictions do their general ledgers. For those of you who may not have had experience with this, for some of you, you may have had experience with how general ledger operates in terms of your financial system at your place of employment. Some of you may not have. So I just kind of wanted to go over kind of how this is set up. So the first column, column A, that is the division number. So the way that our system works here in Rocky Mount, and a lot of systems are similar, is that at the core, they budget on the basis of division. You start off with fund, i.e. the general fund or a various enterprise fund or something like that. Then you have the department, in which case this is from the police department, and then you have the division. So for example, this division here, 110, 20, 135. 110 represents the general fund, 20 represents the police department, 135 is police administration. So this is division 110, 20, 135. So that's the police administration division. So this is where the police chief's budget would be. Then you have the category, and this is like a subgroup of the accounts in the line items of the general ledger. And you can see here, like there's code 50, which is wages and salaries, 51 for benefits, 55 for professional services, 60 for operating expenditures, and there's other associated categories. Then you have an object code. Now these object codes are consistent across division. So if I wanted, for example, you have here object code 412100. And then there's a description over here. There's a field for description, in column E, and it says salaries and wages. So currently I have this set up with the filter feature on, which if you're in Excel, if you go up to data, you will see that there is a filter button here. And if you click on it, like let's say you didn't have it on, you click on it, you would see that then you have in the header row, in row 1, you will see that there's a drop-down box at the end of each line of text in each cell. If you click on that, you will see that then it says you can sort A to Z, which means sort alphabetically or numerically, or you can select. So let's say I just wanted to see object 412100. I can either unclick the select all and just click on the box 412100, or I can type in 412100, click OK. And as you can see, it's only showing me those cells, those rows, I'm sorry, where the object code is 412100. Now, I realize some of you already know this, but I'm covering it for everybody anyway. And as you can see, this would be in the police department, all the codes that say salaries and wages. So again, now after, let me go ahead and show them all again. Go back to filter, select all, brings all of them back up. Sometimes in a set of codes, you would have project codes, which are like sub-object codes. And that allows you to separate it out by project. The projects can also be used with different codes to give you an idea of a total budget for a project. So that's kind of like a separate identifier that we sometimes use in the accounts. The description, as you can see here, is the description for each account code. And that's, again, consistent across all divisions within the jurisdiction. Expenditure type is E for account type is E for expenditure. And then you have the financial information. So first we have adopted. This was the adopted budget for the given year. Then this field here shows the total net value of transfers or adjustments in the account. So this column G plus column H equals the amended, which is column I. And then that gives us the amended. Sometimes that may change, sometimes it may not change, but the amended is what you actually have as your authorized budget number. And we'll talk about how you can adjust to achieve an amended later on. I think that's in week 5. Then you have your year-to-date expenditures. That's how much you've actually spent year-to-date. Then you have your encumbrances, and encumbrances are cases where you've encumbered funds, which means that you have a purchase order or a requisition out for money, but it hasn't been actually expended. But you still have to, for accounting rules, consider it used money. And this information leads to the available budget. So I'm going to show you a formula example of how we achieve this. But basically, your amended minus your year-to-date expenditures minus your encumbrances equals your available budget. And again, this is year end, so this is why the numbers are so low, or some of them are in negative. So this is the information that we have to work with. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to change the format of column L to show cents. So I would highlight column L, right click on column L, and then all these features come up. And as you can see here, I have this comma feature. If I click on comma style, it shows me the cents. It collects it to where it rounds it to 2 decimal points. So it gives me dollars and cents. So one kind of formula that we haven't talked about, that I don't know if did he talk about conditional formatting?
Can you do that one more time, Professor Hunter? Because I didn't see it the way my screen was set up.
Sure, absolutely. And this is being recorded, so you'll have a chance to watch it again too on the YouTube channel. So let me right click on column L again. You see here where there's this comma here on the menu that pops up, the menu ribbon that pops up. You click comma style, and it converts it to dollars and cents. So it automatically rounds it to 2 cents. If you wanted, and when it comes to financial information, you shouldn't need more than round it to 2 decimal places. No more than 2. Shouldn't have to go to 3 or 4 or anything like that. It should always be rounded to 2 decimal places. So let's say I wanted to know, but let's say I wanted to know the available budget rounded to $1. So the way I can do that is through a formula. Now, one of the good things is that the function key allows you, gives you help in picking the formulas to use properly. So I click on the FX button here. I click on the FX icon and I type in round. Click go. I click on round, where that says rounds the number to a specified number of digits. So I click on round, and then I have the wizard. And what that shows is that I have number and number of digits. So number indicates the number that I want to round, in which case that's the cell before. And then I want to round it to a number of digits. So if I pick 0, that means it'll round it to the nearest whole integer, which is 9. If I round it to -1, it will round it to the 10 spot, which will make it 10. If I round it to 1, it'll make it 8.8. So the way it works with rounding is that if you round with a positive number, it rounds to the right of the decimal into tenths, 100ths, 1000ths, and so on. If you type in a negative number, it rounds to the left into tens, hundreds, and thousands, and so on, going up. For this case, I want to leave it at 0 because I just want to round it to the whole integer, which is 9. I click OK. I click OK. And it gives me 9. And you can see there, even the 2 digits after that are 0, 0 because it's rounding the number. Now, if I want to copy and paste this down the line, that's very simple. I click Control C. Control C. That copies the cell. I hold my Shift key down, and then I drag my arrow, drag my down arrow all the way down to the bottom to row 71. So I've highlighted all the cells that I want to copy it, that I want to paste it to. Click Control V. And there you see the numbers have been inserted. So that rounds the available to $1. Let me go down to the bottom. And you will see in each cell here on column M, it shows you the formula: round, the reference cell, the cell that we're adjusting, the value we're adjusting, which is in column L, and then the value, which is 0, which rounds it to the next whole integer. Let me delete these because they didn't need to be there. So let's say I wanted to get the sum of the adopted budget for the police department. I can scroll all the way down to the bottom, click on the next cell, next empty cell in column G. Now, what you could do is type in X sum and then G2 colon G71, and that would get you the whole value. But let's say I don't want to do that. Excel makes it easy if you want to do sums at the end of columns or at the end of rows. You go to Insert, go to Home. You select your row, you select your cell that you want to get a sum off of. Then you click on the sigma sign, which is for sum. You click on it, and it automatically does it, as you can see there. Hit enter, and it gives you the number. 17,768,900. Now, when you're working with cells, when you're working with the information, so those are a couple of tricks. If you go back up to sigma up here in the upper right-hand corner of the home ribbon, you'll see there's a drop-down menu. And what you will see is that it can give you average. It can count the amount of numbers in the column. It can give you the maximum number in the column, the minimum number, or even more functions. So that's a nice tool to use when you're working with information. As is the sort and filter feature, which I showed you before, which again, go to data. It's this one here, sort and filter. If you select on filter, it automatically sets up row 1 as the header row, and then allows you to sort the information. Like, for example, if I wanted to sort on the basis of the largest to the smallest in terms of value, I can do that. And as you can see here, and that's going to be the salaries and wages because those are the largest accounts. And if I want to reverse that, I go to home, I click on the reverse arrow for undo sort. Up here, home is undo and redo. I want to undo in the left-hand side, click on the undo, and it goes back to where it was before. So the next thing I want to show are pivot tables. So let's say I've got in here, let me show you, like, for example, I've got one department, which is police, but police is comprised of multiple divisions. If I look at the drop-down box on division, you will see that there are a total of 5 divisions in the police department because there's 5 different division numbers. So I want to know what the total is for each division. So regardless of however the numbers are sorted, pivot tables allows me to do that automatically. So the way you create a pivot table is to go back up to your top ribbon, click Insert, Pivot Table, click on the pivot table icon, and then it'll go through a wizard. And the first thing it'll ask for your range. You just make sure that the whole range is highlighted, and you'll see that by the scrolling dashes on all sides of the data set. You see that it's all highlighted. So it's all there. So the table and range is set. Then it'll say choose where you want the pivot table to be placed. We want it on a new worksheet, so it's going to create a new worksheet inside this spreadsheet. Click on OK. And you will see here that a new worksheet's been created inside your spreadsheet, sheet 1. And over here to the right, it is listing your pivot table fields. So what I want to know is I want to know what the adopted and amended budgets are for each division. So the first thing I do is I click on the word division. I hold down my left mouse key and I drag it down to rows. And you will see here that the rows have been created. Now I want to remove this blank because that blank was that total that I put in before. I don't want it in there. So I go to this drop-down arrow here at the header of that column, and I unclick blank. So that removes it from the calculation. Then I go to adopted. I left click again and drag to values. And as you can see here, it has automatically summed the adopted value for each division. And it's provided a grand total for the department based on a sum of the divisions that are included. Do the same thing with amended. Do that again. And there we go. And I can also do that with year-to-date expenditures. At this point, I can also click on it and available budget. And all that information is provided. If I want to fix the formatting, because this is a little hard to read, I want to add some columns to it. I highlight all the columns B through E, right click, select the comma field. This time, I don't want to round it through a formula. I just want to decrease the presence of the decimal. So I click on decrease decimal twice. To remove the decimals are gone. And it's rounded up to whole numbers. If I want to add the decimals back, I click on increase decimal and add them back. So decrease to go to whole numbers. So as you can see here, in the police department, in the fiscal year that this was pulled, the adopted budget started off at $17,768,900. The final amended was $18,094,746. They spent total expenditures for that fiscal year were $17,389,138. And the available budget still remaining at the end of this particular fiscal year is $705,068. Now, let's say I wanted to do a chart that compared the values of the adopted, that showed how much was in each division. So what I do there is the first thing I do is I highlight the columns and rows. I highlight the reference column, which will serve as the x-axis, and I highlight the data column, which serves as the y-axis. I highlight those. Now, here is where a lot of people make a mistake in terms of what kind of chart or graph to use in this particular case. What kind of chart do people normally use when they take pieces of a whole and want to show them together? Anybody?
Pie chart?
Pie chart.
Pie chart?
Right. The pie chart is not the best way to show the comparisons of data that we're wanting to show. And the reason why is that as much as we know, is because we already know that this is the whole. What we're really interested in is the difference between the pieces of the whole. And pie charts do not show that differentiation very well unless there's only two numbers, only two variables they're trying to show. A pie chart can show X and Y differently, X1 and X2 very well. But once you get beyond two, they don't really show very well. So instead, what I recommend is that you use what's known as a horizontal bar chart. So to select a horizontal bar chart, up here in the insert, on the insert ribbon, you select the bar chart, select the drop-down menu, you select 2D bar, you click on the first example, and you will see what's there. Now, the challenge here is that it's including all the information because it's pulling it from a pivot table. But we're only interested in the sum of adopted. You will also notice that everything is inverse. You correct that by clicking on this axis, right-clicking, going to Format Axis, and saying that you want the categories in reverse order. And there you go. We also come over here. All we want is the adopted. The adopted's in blue. So we remove the amended. And the way you do that is you click on the bars for amended and you hit the delete key. Next, you hit sum of expenditures, hit delete. Well, it's not doing what I thought it would do. Okay. Okay. When you're working in a pivot table, we want to remove amended year-to-date expenditures and sum of available budget. So we right click on sum of amended, click on remove field, click on sum of year-to-date expenditures, click on remove field, sum of available budget, click on remove field. Then we click on this. We don't need this, so we just hit delete after we highlight it. And that gives us a better looking graph. Then we hide the axis field button because we don't need it. We hide this axis field button. We hide this field this field button. The other thing that I recommend you do with charts is you make them their own sheets in your spreadsheet. So you right click on the chart, you go to move chart, you click on new sheet. As you see here, the sheet will be named chart 1. You click OK. And you see it'll become its own sheet. So it's a lot easier to work with. You want to give it a title. So you click on the header, you click on the title cell, you highlight the whole cell, and you type adopted budget for police by division. And then you want to make these titles a little bigger. So you go to home, and you can use these increase and decrease font size buttons to increase the font size. We're going to increase it to 20. Then we'll increase the values to 12. And this is a better representation of the differences in value compared to what you would see in a pie chart. Just to give you an idea, if I wanted to change the chart, I can right click in the plot area, say change chart type, change it to pie, and this is what it would look like. Is it really easy to differentiate each value independently? It's not. So we undo that. We come back to this. So that's why we use bar charts as opposed to pie charts when there's more than 2 numbers that we want to compare in terms of value. If I want to add the value for each bar, I right click on the bar, click add data label, and I want to say add data label, and you'll see there it adds the value. Again, I increase that. This was 12, so I increase that to 12. And if I zoom in, you see now what the values are for each bar. And I can change the format if I want. Format, right click on the value, go to format data labels. This appears over here in this right-hand menu. Go down to the bottom, highlight number. You have category. You want to choose currency. Move the decimal places to 0. change the decimal places to 0, hit enter. But it adds the $sign and the commas to show you the amount. And you can do the same thing with the y-axis. In fact, it does that automatically. And this gives us a good representation of the information. If I want to change the range of the axis, of the horizontal axis, I click on the axis. I come over here to where the bars are, axis options. Left click on it, axis options, and I can change the boundaries. Currently, it's between 0 and 9 million, but honestly, I want it between 0 and 10 million because typically for a range like this, you would want to go ahead and set it to 10 million. So I go 10 million, enter, and that adjusts my range. In terms of units, which are separations on the boundary between each unit being measured, 1 million makes a lot of sense. And these are the kind of charts that I do for our jurisdiction. The key with charts and graphs is to make them easily understandable for the people reading them without having to necessarily explain them very well. You want the information on the charts and graphs to be self-evident. So in this example, we've shown you how to do we've gone back and talked a little bit about formulas. The key thing to remember with formulas is the insert function feature, which is up here next to the value information for a cell. You click on that. And if I ask you a question like, give me the average or give me whatever it is of a given cell, you can be able to use the insert function to be able to run the wizard to be able to provide you with that information and follow the steps associated. And anything that I would ask you for, I would go through in an example in lab. You also have the simplified function key, which is up here in the home menu, which you can use at the end of columns and rows to find the sum of a column or row, the average, the count, the maximum, the minimum, and so on. We talked about pivot tables, how we can be able to automatically sum and gather information without having to do the calculations ourselves, which again is accessible through the insert ribbon, first option on the left. And then we've talked about chart design, which again, you access charts through the insert ribbon over here. Are there any questions?
Professor Hunter, with the example you used for the bar chart, if you wanted to, could you have just highlighted the column for sum of adopted, or would it not work that way?
You would have to, we can try it, but normally I highlight both because the way Excel works, the way I've experienced with it, if it sees both like that, it will automatically take the one that you've highlighted first and assume that that's going to be the X value, or the vertical, in that case, the vertical column, to be the descriptive for each value with the first variable. But let's try it. So like this is what you're saying.
When you made the bar chart initially, why did it pull up all those other fields that you didn't want, that you didn't have listed here?
Because I was doing it in a pivot table. Because when you try to create a chart in a pivot table specifically, it works differently. Like, let's go back to this pivot table. Like if I want to go back and adjust the pivot table, I right click in the pivot table area and I go to value field settings. No, I'm sorry. I go to pivot table options. Sorry. No. I'll get it right here in a second. My apologies. No. Having a moment. Show field list. That's it. Down here, it should say hide field list. It should say show field list. It was hidden for a second. So let me go back and click on, I've got adopted. So let me click on amended and year-to-date expenditures again. If I didn't want the pivot table features to come up, I would have to do this. I'd have to come down below and create basically a second set of data, which I can do one of two ways. The easiest way to do it is to copy. So I would highlight the cells I want to copy, Control C, then come down, right click, and select paste option, values. And then if I do it this way, you'll see that it comes up without all that extra information. But because it's a pivot table, if I were to do it again like this, the way Excel works, it automatically inserts all the information for the pivot table in there.
So then
this
is
is the-
it possible to just do the divisions and some of adopted in the bar chart without pulling the other two fields over?
Right, you do that by just removing it up here, or by copying and pasting the information down and then using it again.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, so I kind of missed the part when you took the bar chart table and when you put it to another screen, did you right click to do that? Because I can't seem to figure it out.
Okay, so you're talking about how I moved it to another
Yeah.
level. Okay. I gotta hold on one second. So you right click on the chart and it says move chart. Do you see that? And either
Yes.
I have it as a new sheet, which was the next screen that I moved it to. It's another worksheet in the spreadsheet or workbook, or I can have it as an object in the original sheet. But it's easier to work with charts and graphs if you go ahead and give them their own sheet, because
All
you'll
right.
have more room to work with. It sets them up properly.
Thank you.
Something else I want to show you all. When you're copying and pasting charts to like PowerPoints or to Word documents or whatever, don't just copy and paste them like Control C to Control V. Because what happens is you're basically inserting what Microsoft calls an object into the file, and it messes with the proportions. Like, let's say I open up I'm just going to open up PowerPoint to show you an example. So let's say I copy the sheet and I copy it over to I copy it over here. And I just Control V. You'll see here it's already bigger than the slide, but look what happens when I try to shrink it. You see how it adjusts the proportions? It automatically adjusts it. You don't necessarily want that. You want it to look the way it looks like in Excel. So the way you do that's one of two ways. You can either just copy it the way I did it before. And then when you come over to PowerPoint or to Word, you right click and you pick the far option over here, paste as a picture. Paste as a picture. And then however you set it, it'll because it's a picture file, it's not an active data file. It's not an active object. So copy, but paste as a picture. That's a recommendation I have for y'all. Are there any other questions?
Can you walk through how to do the how to start to make the pivot table again? Because I'm getting every time I try to do it, it doesn't pull in the divisions.
Okay.
I'm doing something wrong.
Okay, let's try this. So so first of all, click on Insert, Pivot Table, click on the screen again. When you come to Table and Range, make sure that row A is in there. If it's not, if row A division is not in there, then click on this up arrow and highlight the whole area that you want picked up. Like so. See how I did that with my left arrow key?
Yeah.
So what you want to make sure is that this formula that it starts off at A1. If it starts off at B1, then you're right, it's not going to pick up division, but you want to make sure it picks up A1.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay. Well, again, this will be available as a video. There will be two separate videos from tonight, one of the lecture and discussion, and second will be this lab. And I should have them available tomorrow. So you'll have a chance to watch them if you need to before the start of class on Monday next. Are there any other questions?
So
If not, I'm sorry, go ahead,
I
Linda.
do have a question. I'm sorry. When you put them on YouTube, will they stay there forever? Or do we have a certain amount of time that we need to work with them?
I'll probably keep them on there for an indefinite period of time, at least through the end of the semester.
Okay.
I probably won't delete them if that's okay with everybody.
It's wonderful for me.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you all very much. And I appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing y'all again next Monday at 6:15 p.m. Thank you very much and have a great rest of the evening.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.